I fainted and woke up in someone else's house in the woods. Today, we won the game by a huge margin, and it was as good as ever. I put the ball in the baskets every time I attacked. Now, I was standing surrounded by the cool girls from our college who were listening to how good I was today. It was already late, so I went to a locker room, but on the way, I ran into Nancy Stewart, a local nerdy and straight A student who suggested that I study with her. She knew that I devote a lot of time to sports and do not think about studying at all. For as long as I can remember, Nancy has been following me everywhere, not letting me live normally and driving me crazy. So now I pushed her away and left. One day, after training, she burst into the men's locker room with textbooks to study with me. Naturally, the guy didn't like it and they asked me to show her the door, which I did. Maybe I was rude then, but one needs to know the boundaries. I knew perfectly well that these lessons with me were just an excuse to meet, and since I kept trying to get out of it, Nancy became more and more persistent. One day, I became very ill and came down with a fever. Then my friends came to me to support me. We were chatting and playing video games, but guess who came then? The door of my room opened, and our crammon, Nancy, came into the room with a whole pile of textbooks in her hands. I was surprised with her visit because I did not invite her. Nancy pushed my friends out, muttering to them something about the fact that Sean is sick and he needs a healthy sleep and bed rest. My friends were not happy with her, and neither was I. How did Nancy even have the nerves to just break into my apartment? I yelled at her and asked her not to come near me anymore. So I also couldn't help myself but shout to her that I would never meet such a scarecrow like her. Not on my life, I cried. Not on my life. I agree it was tough, but she totally drove me crazy. Nancy stared at me with angry eyes for a long time, then silently picked up her textbook and went out the door. A friend of mine joked that I had better be more careful because such a stubborn can kidnap me. I just laughed with them, then I heard a strange sound outside the door. The floorboards began to creak. It was as if Nancy had just left and had been eavesdropping on our conversation all this time. After a long illness, as it seemed to me, I recovered and went back to a basketball training. At the training itself, I felt some kind of indisposition, and my coach noticing this, he sent me home to rest. Even though I came out of training early, it was already dark outside. I was walking along the road and I started to feel very dizzy. I took a couple of one more steps. 1, 2. My body buckled and I fell into darkness. I opened my eyes and found that I was in some strange room with pink wallpaper. My clothes were lying on a chair neatly washed and ironed. It all very strange. I looked out the window. It became clear that I was on the 3rd floor and the house itself was just huge. There were only forests for miles around it. I tried the door handle, but it was locked. Out of anger and despair, I started pounding on the door with my fist and demanded to be let out. Suddenly, a muffled voice came from the speaker hanging over the door, which said that I had passed out and instead of wasting energy frantically knocking the door, I had better rest. I really wasn't feeling well and I felt dizzy. I barely made it to the bed, collapsed on it, and then fell asleep. When I woke up, I saw a tray of sandwiches and tea on a chair. So while I was sleeping, someone coming here. The voice came out of the speaker again. It advised me to eat. I refused for a long time and demanded to be released. But the voice simply did not respond to my complaints. Hunger still got over me, and I ate everything that was on the tray. After I finished the last sandwich, speaker started playing again. The voice said that there were textbooks here, and if I wanted to study. What textbooks? They are keeping me locked in the boonies. However, this time, I didn't protest. I just walked around the room studying everything around me. However, at some point, I got tired hanging around and still opened the textbook. On one page, I found a homemade bookmark. Oh my God, I remembered that I already seen one. I started shouting that I knew who had kidnapped me. I demanded that Nancy open the door immediately. The speaker groaned and went silent again. The door opened. When I left the room, I found myself in a long corridor. I noticed one strange door on which it was written in red letters, "Do not enter." Naturally, I wondered what was behind this door, but just as I thought, it was closed. I went down to the living room. Nancy was sitting at a huge table on which there were delicious dishes. I didn't even look at her, but immediately went to the exit and began to pull the huge door. But it seems all exits in this house was also locked. Nancy invited me to the table, but I want to play her stupid game. I went to the other rooms and began to check the doors. It was locked. I looked at the windows. There was bars on the windows everywhere on all floors. Damn, this is some kind of prison. Realizing that was no way up out here, I returned and sat down at the table. I was very hungry, so I ate and demanded that she let me out. And if this some kind of joke, then it dragged on. Nancy replied that she saved me when I passed out and brought me to the house of her parents, who by the way came here rarely. Now, she decided to make a little experiment. She wants to make me fall in love with her in 7 days. Today is coming to an end, and she still has 6 more days. I also choked on such a statement. I shouted that I would not stay for 6 days with this crazy woman who, instead of taking me to the hospital, locked me in her bedroom. Nancy smiled and said that I would soon confess my love to her. While she was talking, I noticed a strange key next to her. I didn't want to stay in the same room with this psycho, and the only open room was the one in which she kept me, so I went there to sleep. I woke up in the dead of the night. The door to my room was closed again. Looks like Nancy locked me in as soon as I fell asleep. From the pocket of my jeans, I took out the screwdriver I had found. I was looking for a way to get out of this damn house and carefully unscrewed the handle. When I was free, I immediately went to the main door of the house, hoping that I could also get out of it. But I was in a huge disappointment in the form of a back lock on the door. My life-saving screwdriver could not cope with it. I was already desperate and ready to return to the room when I remembered about the key that Nancy had with her. I obviously had to open the door that marked "Do not enter." Maybe that was where she keeps the other keys to the house. All I had to do was sneak into her room and pick it up. In Nancy's bedroom, there was a small nightstand next to her bed. Afraid to wake her up, I crept on tiptoe. There was a small carved box on the nightstand. I was 100% sure that the key was there. As soon as I opened the box, it started playing some music very loudly. I snatched out the key and slammed the lid. The music stopped. I stood at it dumbfounded and was afraid to move. It seemed to me that I had woken Nancy. Moreover, she began to snore, and her snoring even calmed me down because it meant that she was fast asleep. Standing in front of the secret door, I wondered what secret Nancy kept behind it. Just thought that the key came up and I opened the door without any problems. I imagined that what I would see would amaze me, but I didn't think how much in the dim light of lighter I used to illuminate the room. I found my photographs and newspaper clippings with my image on the walls. Moreover, my old things were stored here. Here are my old sneakers that I threw away, and here is my sketch album that I have been looking for so long. In the very center of the room, there was a mannequin that dressed in my clothes, and a photo of my face was attached to the mannequin's head. Damn, she's crazy. She obviously upset with me. If she built an entire altar in my honor, I need to get out of here. As soon as I thought about the lights in the room turned on, there were pops behind me. Nancy was standing there and was very unhappy that I revealed her little secret. Nancy said that after my antics, she could not let me go because I would tell her secret and everyone would think that she was crazy. She was not going to let me out. Then she slammed the door. She is completely out of her mind. Sooner and later, they will start looking for me. Although it could take weeks or even months until they find me, I have no intention of staying in this dark room for so long. I shouted that if she did not let me out, then I would burn everything that she had collecting for so long. There was no answer. Apparently, She thought I was bluffing. Well, I lit the flame. Nancy was standing in the hallway when the fire alarm went off. She saw the smoke was pouring from the cracks under the door. Without thinking for a long time, she opened the lock. As soon as I saw the door was open, I jumped out of the room. Nancy watched as the things that they had carefully collected over the years burned down. Nancy pushed into the room to save what was left. Meanwhile, carbon monoxide smoke was spreading throughout the house. Nancy flapped the blanket to put out the fire and demanded that she let us out at last. Otherwise, we will die here. To which Nancy replied that she was ready to accept that hand in hand with me. Crazy? I ran to the exit, but already in the mid of the way. I stopped. I couldn't leave her there. When I returned the room, Nancy was already lying unconscious. I hoisted her onto my back and carried her down to the main entrance, putting her on the floor. I began to give her artificial respiration when she woke up for a second. I demanded that she give me the key to the door. In her crazy eyes, I realized that she even liked everything that was happening all tragedy in style of Romeo and Juliet. When I was already desperate and prepared for the worst, I heard loud bangs on the door. Another blow and the door shattered into fragments. It was the firemen. Oh, how glad I was to see them. They carried Nancy and me out. She was immediately put on a gurney and put on an oxygen mask. I stood aside, shaken and unhurt, and watched as cars flooded the house of Nancy's parents, and I'm sure they had insurance. As I was standing there, the doctor rolled Nancy past me. She took off her mask and said that we would see each other soon because I saved her, which means I love her. I thought that it seemed nothing was finished yet, but I understood that she was not joking. After all, I went to the college and pretended that I was just sick and nothing happened, but I haven't seen Nancy since that moment. Although, to be honest, I can't help feeling that someone is watching me. I'm very scared. Do you think Nancy will appear in my life again? Tell me, what would you do if you were in my shoes? Write the answer in the comments and click on the thumbs up button under this video.